Okay, everybody, welcome back to the DanaBuckler Show. My name is Dana, and I am pleased to welcome live in studio Les and Jess from the Joint Laughter Podcast. Ladies, good afternoon. How are you both doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for doing this. Thanks for being a part of this. So, Joint Laughter Podcast, a podcast that I've been a fan of for, well, gosh, you're coming up on 1 year now that you've been doing it.
420.
420, yeah, absolutely. So, Les, let me ask you this. For those that haven't listened to Joint Laughter, tell us a little bit about the podcast.
Well, I kind of came up with an idea of having Jess on with me and talking about marijuana and getting rid of the stigma of it, but also real life stories and just our crazy antics, our life. I gassed up the car and now me and her are taking it for a ride.
I'm very thrilled and I'm very honored. I was terrified to be
She was nervous.
I was terrified to be a podcaster.
Over the past year that you've been doing your podcast, it has really evolved into some pretty dynamic interviews. And I'm wondering, when you first started, how did you envision the show versus where we are almost 1 year later?
100% happier where it is, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And I wanted Jess to at least have like a segment, like just doing just things, you know. And
I was a sideshow.
I wasn't sure how we were going to correlate that. And it just kind of evolved where rather than having pieces, we just blend it all together. And once she was on board, that is, because I was thinking that would be the way she would
She harassed me. She stalked me and harassed me.
She got a restraining order.
I had to. I dropped it. We're good. We're good now.
I'm allowed here. We're allowed together.
I'm thankful. I had to press charges.
I can't go back to jail.
We're still waiting for the outcome of that particular case. I mentioned you did a lot of interviews in the past year that you've been doing the podcast. I have listened to pretty much every episode you've done. Some of the interviews are hilarious. Some of them are heartbreaking. And I'm wondering, if you've got somebody who's listening to this podcast and you want to recommend a couple jumping off points, what's a couple episodes that you would really recommend?
Well, what I would say is, like you said, some of them are funny and a good time. We try to make even the sad ones a positive story in the end, because it is joint laughter, not joint sadness.
Yeah.
And a good example of one would be the Jessica Lunsford hero, which is with Mark Lunsford, lost his daughter brutally, kidnapped and murdered. And he changed laws in 46 states in her name. And even on the show, he breaks down and he says, I had to lose her to save other kids. He was looking at the good side. And so that's a great one.
It's really sometimes they're topics that you don't think you're going to laugh at. You're like, how can we can't laugh at this, but we let them lead the way. So even Mark Lunsford, he made a few jokes.
Yeah, we're laughing. And she goes, I think we laughed too much.
And we just had Tina on the show, who was abducted at the age of 16. This was in the mid-90s. And she was abducted.
For 3 days.
For 3 days. No. She was supposed to be going to her boyfriend's house. And he wasn't there. And then instead his friend was there. And he was 17.
No, he was in his 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he wound up kidnapping her for 3 days, drugging her. And
she finally got loose.
But throughout us doing the interview, we were laughing. And
I'd really wanted to re-record.
Les wanted to re-record. And I was like, but it's really good. But even Tina, we let her lead it. She was fine with it, and she's in her 40s now. And it's been a long time past, but we try to bring the best out we can to gloom and doom. We try to make it better, but we do question ourselves, don't we?
I think everyone questions that.
Joint laughter.
There's a couple episodes that and both of those episodes that you mentioned, I've listened to, and they were amazing. And then there's two that really stand out to me as well. One is when you had the amazing DJ Mondo on. Long-time listeners to my podcast know that I, was a DJ for many, many years and absolutely knew who Mondo was and probably seen him 30, 40 times over the past 20-something years. So to have him on the show and the one thing that really sort of struck me about him was just how modest and how humble he was. And this
He was
guy is
great.
now becoming a legend in Las Vegas. I mean,
He's at the biggest nightclub in the world.
yeah, and he's killing it, and just
Yeah.
the nicest guy. And then probably one of my all-time favorite podcasts is when you had Kenneth Speedy Rollerson on the show.
I love him.
If you could just, and we're gonna get into the main topic of our podcast, but the Kenneth Speedy Rollerson episode. For those who don't know, there was a television series on, 10, 12 years ago called I Almost Got Away With It. And it's about these career criminals who tell their stories. And I had actually seen this episode when it aired. And then for you guys to have this gentleman on your show, it was one of the most entertaining podcasts I had ever listened to. Not just your show, but any podcast.
It's quite a story,
That was-
actually, how Speedy
That was a
came
great
about.
episode. He was so sweet and kind and funny. We're like, we're rooting for you.
So, Les, should we tell how it began as far as having Speedy on? I'll start it.
Sure.
We podcast out of Les's house. That's where our studio is. And I am from Inglis, Florida. Speedy Rollerson is from Inglis, Florida. Speedy's a lot older than I am, but he's a legend there. He did run from the FBI for a good 10 years and hid out in the golf hammock, and not many people.
In the woods.
And he probably knows the golf hammock like nobody's business. But we know that he was a bank robber, and he did some hard time in prison for a number of years. I mean, he served with Ted Bundy. He served with John Cooey.
Yeah.
He served with those serial killers, and he tells some great stories. So it's called The Compassionate Criminal. If anyone wants to go to jointlaughter.com, go to the Compassionate Criminal. But I said, Les, and of course she had to talk to her husband, Jeremy, too, about this.
Are you okay with the bank robber coming here? Because he's at work when we were recording. So I'm like, you're not even going to be here. you
Right.
know?
And not knowing him like that much, but knowing that there's lots of tales about Speedy Rollerson. And I asked Les that, and what did you say, Les?
Anything for the podcast. I don't care. I'm good.
So I said, let's do it.
Whatever it takes.
So I
That's
remember
awesome.
getting there, and Speedy was supposed to be at Les's house at a certain time, and I walked into her house, and she was sitting at her dining room table, and she
telling that
looked
part.
absolutely plowed. And I said, what's the matter? And she goes, Jess, I looked up Kenneth Speedy Rollerson online, and he is a registered pedophile. I
I
said,
go, he's not coming in my house.
and he was going to be there literally within 15 minutes. And I said, no way. I know who this guy is. He might have done a lot of things, but he was not a pedophile. That's a deal breaker, period. And the people who said, yeah, do it. I trust their judgment. So I said, no. So I said, show me what you Googled. So she did Google Kenneth Speedy Rollerson. It was a completely different Speedy who was a pedophile, but this was not the same guy. We must have embraced for 10 minutes.
Oh,
Because
we just hugged. We're like, oh, thank God. All right.
Yeah, 'cause
all right,
that was
let's
not-
get this. Now I had to get back into mode because I was ready to be like, don't let that guy on my street.
then we meet him. He was fantastic. We become friends.
Yeah.
And now he's writing a book,
Yeah.
which Penguin Publishing Company is going to be publishing his book to tell his story.
And he's coming on soon to talk about it.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
No, and Penguin's a huge publisher, so that's awesome. You guys kind of got the exclusive. You got him to kind of tell his story ahead of the book, and I think that's just awesome. One of the rare instances where I didn't want the podcast to end. I was like, because I had, reached out to Jess and I said, that was an amazing episode. It could have been longer because I was so into his story. And then you had him back for a follow-up, and that was awesome. So for the listeners out there, the podcast is called Joint Laughter. It's available wherever podcasts are found, and there'll be links in this episode show notes where you can check it out, and I strongly encourage you. So one of the reasons why I want to have you on the podcast is because this is when movies were movies. And the inspiration for this show, this series, if you will, actually came out of Jess and I deciding one day to go to a movie. She said, let's go see a movie. Let's go to the movies. And I said, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And then I opened up the Fandango app to our local movie theater. And to my utter dismay, there wasn't a single movie that I was interested in seeing. It was either the ones they were showing that I might have had a little bit of interest were already available on streaming. And then the other ones I could not have given a shit about. And it just dawned on me, in the 90s, you could go to the movies every weekend without fail and see an original story. It was an awesome time. And I will be the first to admit that I took that for granted at the time. I thought the well would never dry up.
It did, though, didn't it?
Oh, and it really has. It really
Yeah.
has. The other day I'm at work and one of my coworkers says to me, "Hey, did you see the new Ghostbusters?" And I'm like, "No.
No way.
Why would I?
Why would I go see that?" And then that night I came home and put the original Ghostbusters on and said to myself, this was a movie. The people that have made the new Ghostbusters don't even understand what's special about this original film. It was so magical. And I was just like,
You can't duplicate it.
You can't duplicate it.
Why do you think these wonderful actors that have been doing movies for years even want to make a new Ghostbusters?
It's a money thing at this point.
Is Sigourney Weaver in the new one?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Well, she made the right choice.
She does.
What about Bill Murray?
He is in the new one. And by the way, just so you know, like the one that came out a couple of years ago, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Sigourney Weaver does have a cameo in the end of the movie.
I can handle a cameo.
It's just at the end. But it dawned on me that there's a whole generation out there that doesn't even realize that there was a time when people took the craft of making movies serious. It wasn't about how much money can we make. It was about, can we make a great movie? And if you make a great movie, most times the money will follow. But studios are now chasing money. They're not chasing, creativity.
Well, they're focused on the money and not the audience.
Absolutely. And now it's because, in the 90s, you'd make a movie for 25, 30 million. You'd hope that it would make 100 million. That would be a success story right there. But now studios are like, 100 million's okay, but $1 billion's great. If we can make $1 billion. So how do we make $1 billion? Well, we have to do this, no risks, if you will. We can't do anything risky. All right. So we have to make sure that when we make a movie, it's something everyone's going to want to see. And how do we guarantee that it's something that everyone wants to see? Well, you have to make sure that it's something that's familiar to people. And that's why everything's a sequel, a prequel, a remake.
Well, they're not getting it right because
No,
people
they're
are
not.
getting upset.
No, people are done.
Right. They don't want to see that. They don't want art being
I don't
messed
want a
with.
remake of the Ghostbusters or Karate Kid.
They already remade
come
the
up with a new
Ghostbusters
one.
anyway. They already did it.
Give us a new story.
Yeah, that's
and if it becomes successful, great. Make a sequel from it. Fine.
I have lots of ideas, so they can come knock on my door.
So I started this series called When Movies Were Movies. And it was just like, hey, let's reminisce about some fantastic films that, were popular and also successful and weren't inundated with 25 sequels. Some of the movies we're going to talk about today, I'm sure, have been remade, but if they haven't, stand by. They will.
Yeah.
So I asked you guys just to come up with a few movies. So I will start with you, Jess. What's the first movie on your list?
Goodness. Okay. Well, I would like to start with, and Dana told me I had to come up with 5, which I had a really hard time with this because I love movies. But let's start with Top Gun.
The original Top Gun.
Let's start with the original Top Gun.
1986, directed by Tony Scott.
So I loved it. It was great. Of course, Tom Cruise. And even though I did not have a crush on Tom Cruise when that movie first came out, my sister did. But it was fantastic. I recently have watched the new Maverick.
Yes.
And I know it's 2 years old now. And everyone asked me, how are you just now watching this? Well, because I got really down on the movies, just like everyone else. I just wasn't interested in watching movies anymore. So I started doing the streaming stuff. But I watched Maverick the other night and I loved it.
Yeah. That's a rare example of a recent film that's actually really good. That's
kind of the same story, but a different story.
Yeah,
not redoing.
I was
exactly.
biting my nails. I couldn't sit still. I was just excited. And I have not felt that way in so long about any new movies that have come out at all.
And,
So
and the son in that movie is from Citrus County.
Yes,
Yeah,
Miles
Miles
Teller.
Teller, yeah.
Yes. I was very happy about that. I that's proof right there that they can make movies and they are still movies. They don't have to have all this, what do you call it, Dana, CGI?
Yeah, computer-generated imagery.
I hate CGI. I hate it. It gives me anxiety.
It's one of those situations when you look at Maverick, Okay, the easy way to make that movie in 2022 when it came out would be to do everything computer generated, but they didn't do that. They filmed more than 800 hours of actual aerial aviation. With the Navy gave full participation, and it shows. They actually put the actors in the cockpits. They're up there in the sky like that. It's a real movie.
I felt the movie so much that I get seasick a lot and motion sickness, car sick and all that. I actually felt like I was in that cockpit with those actors. I actually felt like nauseous there for a second. That's how much it captured me. I was so happy about that.
The original Top Gun I'll tell you something really interesting about the original Top Gun. So when the producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, were they said, we're going to make this movie. That we've got the script, we've got Tom Cruise on board. We really need to get the Navy to help us out. We really do, because CGI is not a thing in 1985 when they're filming the movie. And so they go to the Navy and say, hey, listen, we want to make this movie. We really can't make it without your help, because you've got the jets, you've got the F-14 Tomcats, and we want to be able to film these. What do you think? And the Navy said, they kind of hemmed and hawed, and Simpson and Bruckheimer are like, well, this would make a great recruiting tool for you guys. And the Navy said, all right, well, let's.
Oh yeah, now you're talking our language.
Yeah, let's take a look at the script. So the Navy looks at the script and says, okay, we're going to let you use our jets. The only thing you have to do is pay for the fuel, and you can, we'll let you film on the aircraft carrier. We're in, but there's going to be 3 changes to the script that you're going to have to make in order for us to say we're a go. Number 1 is the enemy cannot be identified. You cannot say where the enemy is from.
And they did do that. They did not identify that. It never
says where it's from. That's number 1. Number 2, in the original script, Kelly McGillis's character, Charlie, she's actually in the Navy. She's an enlisted Navy personnel. And, there's the big love affair between Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis, and the Navy said, no, we don't like
motorcycle.
We don't like this, officer enlisted, fraternized. Make her a civilian. And that's why there's a line in the movie where Michael Ironside says, this is our expert, and she knows she is a civilian, so you don't have to salute her. So that's the second thing they said, you got to change it. And then the third thing they said, and this was the most important one, was that spoilers for the original Top Gun, but when Goose dies in the original script during, one of their training exercises, it's because Maverick collides with another jet. And that's how Goose dies. And the Navy said, yeah, no, here's the thing. Okay, these are the best of the best pilots, all right? They're the best. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to make it to where the crash is because it was something that just, couldn't have been prevented. And that's where the whole Maverick gets into Iceman's jet wash and it stalls out the plane and everything like that. So those 3 things had to change, and they agreed to it. And then Top Gun was such a successful movie that the Navy started putting recruiters just outside the movie theater. So when the movie was done, people would leave the theater, and there's your Navy recruiter saying, did you like the movie?
Wow. Do you have a number on that? Did it ever say how many people actually
how many
signed up?
I don't know, but I had 2 years ago, I had a friend of mine. His name is Tad Godsill, call sign Blaster, and
Blaster.
That was his call sign. And he said, no, it was because of Top Gun that he wanted to
not over the top Blaster. No.
Who's Blaster?
Blaster from Over the Top. Wasn't he the arm wrestler? Big old guy?
Bull Hurley.
Bull Hurley, but they called him the Blaster.
Did they? I didn't know that.
Oh, am I telling you something, Buckler? Uh-oh.
This is going to be
Luckily,
the
that's
DanaBuckler
not one of my movies.
Jess show.
Yeah. So yeah, no. And then once again, when they were going to make the second Top Gun movie, they went to the Navy, and the Navy's like, you got it.
Yeah.
Recruitment's been down. Make the movie. You can use as much as you want. So
interesting.
Good first choice.
Watch this, Les. Name the number 1 hit that came from the movie Top Gun.
There was 2.
Okay, well, let's start with the first one.
Danger Zone.
Good. Yeah. Holy heck, Ski. Good job. I didn't think Damn. Okay. And Dana, go ahead and hit me with number 2.
Berlin, Take My Breath Away.
Yes, I'd love to, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, what's the song when they're at the bar? His pickup song.
Righteous Brothers.
Dun-dun,
Yeah,
dun-dun.
You've lost that love and feeling.
yes, that's it.
That love and feeling. Okay.
Okay. Good choice. Good first movie.
Thanks.
Les?
Okay, so my first choice was The Jerk.
Oh, The
with
Jerk.
Steve Martin.
1979.
And the director was Carl Reiner.
Yep.
And it was, I know we were talking about the 80s and 90s. This is 79, but it doesn't matter.
Tomato.
Yeah, whatever. We don't follow rules. So why start now?
Jointlaughter@gmail.com.
Okay, so I'm sure you've seen it. Jess has not seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
She has
Oh, you
never,
called me out on
yes,
air.
She has never seen it.
I've seen clips.
So The Jerk it's a fantastic movie. It's one of those rare films where it's hard to be able to play it today because it's one of those,
Oh, we watch it all the time. That is Jeremy's favorite movie.
it's
Not politically correct.
it's an amazing film. It's certainly a product of its time. And you don't see it on a lot of the streaming services because there's a lot of stuff that happens in that movie that you're just like, you kind of go, ooh, you're not going to get away with that in today's climate. That being said, it's an amazing film. And it's so interesting because the idea for The Jerk was by this point, Steve Martin has been doing stand-up all over the country. And he has just been massively successful, and you can and he's friends with Carl Reiner, and he's just saying, they want to make a movie, and they lock themselves into a room, and they're trying to come up with ideas, and after a couple weeks they just cannot come up with an idea for a movie. And one of the lines that Steve Martin used to always use during his stand-up, he would start off his stand-up by saying, I was born a poor black child in Mississippi. And that used to get the crowd crazy. And that is literally, he said, all right, how do we build on that? And that is how the genesis of that movie started. And it's utterly ridiculous.
It's so silly, but even today, we laugh. It is funny. My kids love the movie.
You want to know another?
Jess needs to watch it.
Let me tell you another fun fact about The Jerk.
Let me stop you
please.
there. You talked about him being on the road doing the tour. I had, until my mother probably threw it away recently, his comedy record
Oh, yeah.
on vinyl. The Wild and Crazy Guy.
I'm a wild and crazy guy. Didn't he do it like that?
He had a banana,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a big balloon
He was
thing on his head.
He
It
was
was
crazy.
funny.
And he's hot. I think he's good looking. He's one of my heartthrobs. is
He
Steve Martin.
had, by the way, his hair turned white by the time he was in his late 20s.
You could tell because every movie he
looks
looks
just-
exactly the same.
He looks just as he hasn't aged in the face
No.
either.
No.
So
Whatever he's doing, he's
another
doing it
fun
right.
fact about The Jerk is once, and this is, I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as possible for Jess, who hasn't seen the movie, but once his invention, the OptiGrab,
Yes.
takes off and he becomes a multimillionaire and he moves into that house. So the script called for that house to be ridiculously decorated. But by the time they got to that part of the shooting schedule, they had almost run out of money. And they didn't have the money to build these crazy, different rooms in this house. Because, he talks about, I always wanted a house that's got this, and it's always got this, it's always this.
Right.
So what happens is they run into a couple that had bought a house in the Hollywood Hills, and they were from Saudi Arabia. And that is actually how their house was decorated. And so they were able to convince, this couple, they paid him like $10,000 to let him shoot there for a week. So when you do all those different shots, like I always wanted, a pool room with, with camels and all
How
that
do
stuff
they
like
find
that.
that? How do they find this person in Saudi Arabia?
And so they didn't change one thing
That
about
is
that
so
house.
funny.
And I thought that was a really funny little side story about The Jerk.
How do they find these people in Saudi Arabia and find these houses that are all decorated?
It was a couple. No, the couple was from Saudi Arabia. they had bought or rented this house in the Hollywood Hills, and that's how they had decorated it.
Oh, so it was in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
So, do you know how they came up with the name The Jerk?
Actually, I don't know.
They were talking and discussing what they should call this film, and Steve Martin said it needs to be something short like Dostoevsky, the Idiot.
It's Dostoevsky, Les. Dostoevsky. Duh.
Yes. Why
Who
didn't
wrote
I
The
know
Idiot?
that?
Who wrote The Idiot? Okay.
And then he said, it needs to be something short like that. And he's like The Jerk. And that's how it came up.
Oh, neat.
So I'm actually, you've never seen The Jerk?
Okay, so when I was really little, I got to watch The Jerk. My parents wouldn't let me. So that's the last time I watched it. I am a huge Steve Martin fan, and I could just laugh at it just by picturing Steve Martin in a movie called The Jerk. I could just sit here and laugh at that. And I did see a couple clips where the shooter was shooting the oil cans.
Yeah.
He hates these cans.
Yeah.
Well, when he gets the job as the gas station attendant, and the guys pull up in the car.
Yes.
That's Mrs. Nussbaum's credit card.
Was The Jerk rated R?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm telling you, we'll watch it. We'll watch over the next week. We'll watch it because there's a couple scenes where you're just like,
You're gonna love it.
not getting away with that today. That's such a great pick. And again, I challenge the listeners out there. If you've never seen this film, like the best way to describe it, it's bizarre, it's wacky, it's zany, and it's very R-rated. So that's a wonderful combination.
And then like the one time he's at the circus.
Yeah.
And he's sending money home, like $1.25 before the OptiGrab became famous.
What is
And
the OptiGrab?
It was something to keep your glasses from slipping down.
Oh.
So
I can
don't
use
wanna
the, I can
ruin
use the
it for you.
OptiGrab right now.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin it for you. So he made a device, and now it took off, made millions. And this poor guy and now has money, and he just spends it exactly how you think. And he's at the circus and working on the road, and he's sending money home to the family. And then he's like, hey, next week I'll be able to send you more money. My girlfriend Patty just offered, or what do you say? Offered me a blowjob?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
Oh, no, she's giving me a blowjob.
Yeah. I'll be able to get some. My girlfriend Patty said that next week I'm going to get a blowjob.
And that's why I was not allowed to watch the movie when I was a little girl.
Oh, that's great.
Good choice. Good movie. Good movie. All right, Jess.
Okay. So I would like to talk about one of my faves, the original, though, Roadhouse.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That would be, 1989?
That's 1989.
1989. Patrick Swayze, the old Swayster. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, unfortunately, he
I
passed
always
away in
loved him.
2009. And it's in interviews he gave shortly before he passed, he said that his drinking and his smoking may have contributed to him getting pancreatic cancer. He said at one point he smoked 3 packs a day, and so. Wow. I have a friend of mine, her name is Kate Matthews, and she's big in the horse industry. And back in the early 90s, Patrick Swayze was really big into the horse industry as well. And she got to go riding with him
and
one
his
day.
wife, too.
Yeah. And his wife still comes into the restaurant. She still lives here in town. She still comes in from time to time. Nice lady.
Kelly Lynch that played in Roadhouse. Yeah. Everyone thinks that is Patrick Swayze's wife in real life, and it isn't, but she looks a lot like his wife in real life. But Kelly Lynch was not Patrick Swayze's wife.
Roadhouse is an interesting case study for a movie that, it comes out in 1989. It's considered an action film, and it's a perfect 1980s action movie because it follows that action movie formula. You've got your hero. He's a little bit larger than life. He has all the answers. He knows exactly what to do. And everyone in that movie takes their role just as serious, like they're trying to make an Oscar movie.
He's so modest.
Yeah.
He's not.
But what's interesting about Roadhouse is it comes out a year after a movie is released. Die Hard comes out in 1988. and completely changes the action movie formula forever. And it used to be with action movies, you couldn't relate to the main character in an action film. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was Sylvester Stallone, it was Jean-Claude Van Damme, it was Chuck Norris. You know, you'd watch these people on screen, you're like, oh, these guys are amazing. I could never do any of that. And then along comes Die Hard, and it's like Bruce Willis, yes, he's a cop, but you know, he's still kind of an everyman. And who I have made the case numerous times that if his wife wasn't one of the hostages when Nakatomi Plaza is taken over, he would have made his way down to the bottom of the, to the ground floor, shot out a window, and he would have been gone. And he would have let the police handle it. But he has to stay because his wife is a hostage. So action movies change forever after that. And there's 2 movies that come out in 1989 that are still using the standard 80s formula. One is Roadhouse, and the other is, any guesses?
I'm gonna say Terminator.
No, okay. not Terminator. So it does. It's a buddy cop movie, and it's not Lethal Weapon 2.
Oh, I was going to get Lethal Weapon 2.
Starsky and Hutch.
No. Not Bad Boys. It's too early.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Does Sylvester Stallone is one of the stars.
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash is the other movie that.
Tango and Cash. Jack Palance.
But Roadhouse is, I have said this numerous times before, that it is one of the best bad movies ever made.
Tango and Cash. I should have chose Tango and Cash. I love that movie. But back to Roadhouse. You know, you said larger than life. He was only 5'10", which is not that short, but only 160 pounds.
I'm shocked that he was 5'10".
5'10".
I am too.
That's crazy. I'm
taller than he is.
You're taller than most. Less and sexy. It was filmed in Anaheim, California. And the director was...
Rowdy Harrington.
Rowdy Harrington, yeah. What else did Rowdy
So
direct?
Rowdy Harrington was... interesting. None of his movies, with the exception of Roadhouse, really caught fire. 1992, he's going to do a movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. and James Marshall called Gladiator. Not to be confused with the Russell Crowe Gladiator. It's a boxing movie, a movie about underground boxing that also stars Brian Dennehy. A few years later after that, he's going to do another movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. called A Murder of Crows.
I saw that too.
About a lawyer who
with Tom Berenger.
Yeah, a lawyer who plagiarizes a book and becomes very, very successful. And turns into this big murder mystery type thing. Not great. So,
well, Sam Elliott was amazing in it.
Yes.
And, Sam Elliott, he also looks the same in every single thing he does.
He looks like he's in his 40s.
He was 43
in Roadhouse.
He was
43, yeah.
Patrick Swayze was 36 in Roadhouse, and he had a birthday on set, and he turned 37.
Okay.
But there's something about old Patrick Swayze, but also Sam Elliott. But he looks the same, just like Steve Martin in every movie.
Well, Patrick Swayze did almost all of his own stunts. Almost all the actors did almost all their own stunts in that film. And there were a lot of scenes with Patrick Swayze when he was fighting people where the two actors would encourage themselves to really hit each other. Like, let's just really go for it. So a lot of those punches in that movie are for real.
That's why I like Patrick Swayze so much. And I know it made $61.9 million.
Well, here's a fun fact. Patrick Swayze was offered $6 million to reprise his role in Dirty Dancing. They wanted to make a sequel to Dirty Dancing, and he was offered $6 million, which is a lot of money in the 80s and would have been the biggest payday that he had ever had. Because, Swayze in the 80s is what? The Outsiders, Red Dawn, Dirty Dancing, Next of Kin. I mean, these are not big paydays. So he turned down a sequel to Dirty Dancing to do Roadhouse.
Did Dirty Dancing come before or after Roadhouse?
Dirty Dancing is 2 years before. It's 87.
Oh. And he did Red Dawn.
He did Red Dawn in 84.
What was it, Outsiders or Red Dawn for his first movie?
I don't have any notes in front of me, but
I know it's Red Dawn.
The Outsiders came out the year before Red Dawn. I know that, 83, and then Red Dawn is 84.
I know We had movie night at our house with our friends' kids and making them watch old movies and watch The Outsiders. I was bawling like a baby. I cried like it was the first time I saw it.
It's an amazing film. When I had Leah Thompson on the podcast back in 2017, I brought up the subject of Red Dawn, and she said that Red Dawn was so much fun to make because when the cameras weren't rolling, all her and Patrick Swayze did was practice dancing because they were both professional dancers. And she said just to watch us in our camouflage, war outfits, just doing ballet dancing. She said it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm going to take a lot of crap for this statement I'm getting ready to make because everyone I talk to about the new remake of Roadhouse, more people love it than hate it, but I absolutely despise it. I think the new Roadhouse is awful. Oh. Awful.
Well, and I'm going to sound somewhat hypocritical because I'm just like, I'm so sick of remakes and I'm done with this. But look, the movie was on Amazon Prime, so it's not like I made a trip to the movie theater or spent any real out-of-pocket money to see it. I had zero below-bar expectations for the film. At the same time, I knew the movie was directed by Doug Liman, who is an incredibly accomplished director. So I knew that on a technical level, the movie was going to be, at least proficiently made. I knew it wasn't just going to be a throwaway movie. So when I went in to watch the remake for Roadhouse, I was actually kind of shocked at how much I enjoyed the film for what it was. Just an R-rated, action movie.
But you say for what it was.
What it was,
I always say quit messing with art, quit messing with things. And Roadhouse, the first Roadhouse to me was absolutely wonderful. And to remake it, why remake Roadhouse and do it where you did it? In Florida, which was actually the Dominican Republic, but Les, I don't want to take it all away, but go ahead, Les, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, were you as involved in it, as engaged in it as the first one?
No.
Or is it just something like white noise in the, just watching
I found it to be a perfectly watchable movie, and I think they made it their own. They made it their own story. Like you take away a couple little things and you call the movie by a different name.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be
Right.
called Roadhouse.
Yes.
You didn't have to call Jake Gyllenhaal's character Dalton. You can change a couple little things and you've got your own standalone movie. Now, would as many people have watched it? Probably not.
I think they would because the
that's the world we
storyline
live
is
in.
wonderful. Everyone loves a good fighting movie. I do. I know.
I think less people watched it because it's called Roadhouse.
Yeah, no, that's...
I mean, we have no interest.
Well, we're from Florida. You go down to
we
the
see
Keys.
bar fights right anywhere we go.
You don't go down the Keys and see rednecks wearing Wrangler plaid country shirts and all these mullets walking around, all these beer brawls. You see people in cutoff shorts, wearing flip flops, loving the island life. That's what you see. You don't. Yeah. So change it up. Call it something different. Don't take Roadhouse, which to me is an American classic, and turn it into the new thing to where they just want. You said make it their own. They didn't make it their own.
Well, no, I mean they
should have.
The plots are completely different. It's completely different in every way, shape, or form, with the exception of the character's name is still the same and the name of the movie is Roadhouse. But everything else is completely different. I mean, right? I mean,
it all goes back to what you said when movies were movies, and how there's no one comes up with their own ideas anymore.
Well, that's a rare movie where I think that if they had just not called it Roadhouse and not call him Dalton, I probably would have been like, now
you could have not called it Roadhouse and still called him Dalton.
What would you have called it, Les? Rename the movie. Do it.
Well, I haven't seen it.
I think it's perfectly watchable.
Call it the Double Deuce.
Yeah, and that wasn't. And by the way, the name of the Roadhouse in Roadhouse, the new one, I think it's called Roadhouse. Like it's just nothing makes any sense. So, but the original Roadhouse, that's a great choice for when movies were movies. Les?
Okay, my next one is Uncle Buck.
Uncle Buck.
All right, that is 1989. It grossed $79.2 million.
Yeah.
What does that equate to today?
I don't have the inflation calculator in front of me, but that's probably close to 200 million at least now.
It cost him $15 million.
Yeah.
But the budget was $15 million.
That was one of the larger budgets that John Hughes worked with.
I love John Hughes. And the reason why I know so much about John Hughes is because DanaBuckler, being a fan of the DanaBuckler show, has taught me a lot about John Hughes. He's probably one of my favorite directors now. May he rest in peace.
Yeah. He passed away 2010, 2011. Really sad. You know, he was just walking down Central Park West, just died of a heart attack. You know, and he kind of stopped working after 1994's Curly Sue. You know, so John Hughes goes on this incredible run. You know, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck. You know, those are the movies that he actually directed in the 80s. Not to mention, he also wrote the National Lampoon's Vacation movies. He wrote Animal House,
Home Alone. And
yeah.
how you said 4 days? He wrote Home Alone in 4 days.
Well, he was famous for writing scripts within, a few days. He
Talent.
he's just incredible.
What a mind.
That
But
mind, yeah.
But he also really understood everyday people. You know, like that was one of the things about his movies.
Did he write Captain Ron?
I actually don't know.
Captain Wrong?
Captain Ron.
Oh, Captain Ron. Is that Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. But Uncle Buck is John Hughes firing on all cylinders. You know, he has, at this point, he's accomplished everything that he needs to accomplish. He's made the definitive teen movies. He's made the definitive comedies for adults with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And then he just brings it all together.
I just love it.
By creating that comedy that is geared towards adults and teenagers.
He captures it perfectly.
He captures it perfectly and introduces the world to Macaulay Culkin, and has such a great time working with Macaulay Culkin on Uncle Buck that he writes an entire movie called Home Alone, with Macaulay Culkin in mind.
So he worked with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so he went from working with him there and came up with Uncle Buck specifically for the role.
Yeah.
And then meeting or working with Macaulay Culkin, then he ends up writing one with him as the main object or subject.
And
that's great. His mind is...
Home Alone made close to $500 million, and that's not adjusted for inflation. That's kind of what it made in 1990 when it was released. And Hughes, as the writer and producer, he saw a lot of that money. So he did incredibly well off that. Plus, it became, a Christmas classic. And so the royalties and residuals that movie...
And who doesn't love it? I mean, adults or kids, I'd watch it if, kids weren't there.
Hughes just decided after 94, I'm not really going to do anything. But he had such an annuity built up with Home Alone that he never had to work another day in his life, which is a shame.
Did he also write Home Alone 2?
He did.
So, wow.
Yeah.
I like that one just as much as the first one.
Uncle Buck's really, it's such a fun movie, but it's perfect. It's a great comedy because of this reason. Because every John Hughes movie, maybe with the exception of Weird Science, which I love, but I want to put that in its own little category. Every John Hughes movie that he directed is hysterical, but also has so much heart to it. There are parts of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, there are parts of a few of his movies where you tear up.
Right.
And
he touches you.
Yeah, he touches you. And you also see that in Uncle Buck.
Yeah.
And you think Uncle Buck is going to just be this zany, off-the-wall John Candy movie, but there's that scene in Uncle Buck where he has, towards the end of the film, he has a tip on a horse race, and he's trying to get to the bookie. He's trying to place a bet, and he has to bring the kids with him, Miles and Maisie, and he's got them in the back of his car, and he looks at them through the rearview mirror, and he has that moment where he's like,
"This isn't right.
I can't do this. I can't do this," and that is just, on an emotional level, something that Hughes was really, really good at.
And good soundtracks.
Yeah.
Both the 16 Candles, Uncle Buck, their soundtracks
Breakfast Club, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Does he pick the music?
Oh, yeah. He has said the music always plays one of the characters in his movies.
So John Hughes is also into music, and then he hand selects the songs for his movies.
Absolutely.
That's impressive too.
And in most cases with Hughes, and when it comes to music, he was sort of the taste maker, the person that would make a song popular. because like when you look at the Breakfast Club, Don't You Forget About Me was not a popular song. That movie came out and it became a popular song. So when he put music into movies, a lot of times it was stuff that he liked, but maybe wasn't necessarily super popular. The lone exception being Tone Loc's Wild Thing being played in Uncle Buck, which is just a great scene.
How about Bust a Move?
Bust a Move. Yeah, no, that's when he goes to that party.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
He's like, this hat infuriates people.
I love John Hughes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice work, Les.
The thing about John Hughes though is
Nailed
I
it.
just wonder, we have to ask ourselves if he hadn't stopped.
I was just
making
going to
movies.
ask you that, and I thought, oh, I better not.
If he hadn't stopped making movies,
Would-
how many more of them would we have be talking about? And then the thing is, like when he passed away, it was so little fanfare. It was just kind of like it was like a blurb, And in another news, writer director John Hughes passed away. Like nobody made a big deal about it, and it was just.
And he's like such a everyone.
He
like our foundation.
He arguably made the best movies of
Yes.
the 1980s.
I think we should take 5 minutes right now and remember him. Everyone be quiet.
5 minutes or 5 seconds?
5 minutes, yeah.
Go.
All right, I'm gonna go pee real quick. If we're gonna do a 5 minute.
No,
We're back.
Yeah, good choice, Uncle Buck. Fantastic film.
I'm going to go with something different and change it up. And I'm going to go with Indecent Proposal.
Indecent Proposal.
Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, Robert Redford.
Yeah, are you ready? Mm-hmm. Never seen it.
Oh,
What?
yes.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. It's
Wow.
just
That was me and my husband's. We went to Kansas City on a trip, and that's where we ended.
What's
up
your husband's
starting-
name?
Jeremy.
Oh.
And so me and Jeremy go to Kansas City for a Paul McCartney concert, actually, and that's where we started dating. But our real first date was to Indecent Proposal.
Wait a minute. How old were you guys?
He was 19,
And you were,
21.
I wasn't trying to point that out. At a Paul McCartney concert. Is that fair that they're that young going to a Paul McCartney concert?
That's awesome.
Rich. Anyway, go ahead.
We were not rich, but yeah. So we went and seen Indecent Proposal for our first real.
That was awkward.
At home date.
Yikes.
Why?
So the plot of
Because
Indecent
the
Proposal.
movie always made every couple start asking the question, well, would we have done that? Would we have allowed that?
so you do know about the
we
plot
were so
then.
new that it was like.
So basically, Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore, they were a younger couple. I believe Woody Harrelson was a struggling architect. They needed money, and they went to the casino because they were down and out, and they gambled all their money away. That was their final shot at trying to get the rest of the money to build their house or continue with their build or whatever. And Robert Redford's there in the casino. And everyone knows how handsome that man
Wealthy,
is. Yes.
handsome man.
He sees the beautiful Demi Moore and he's really interested. Next thing they know, they get a phone call and Robert Redford's making the proposal to the young couple that he will give $1 million to spend one evening with Demi. And together, Woody and Demi, they
Struggled with it.
with the idea because they were very in love. And they were like, well, it's just one night. We'll just forget about it after it's done. Can we handle this?
Never happened.
Yeah. So they
Doesn't
went for
happen
it
like
and it wound up destroying them.
Okay, say no more.
Okay.
Keep
No
it
spoiler alert.
Keep it spoiler free.
Because I didn't say it destroyed them forever.
You can tell from the trailer that they do agree to it because in the trailer there's a scene where like Demi's like rolling around in money or something like that, or he's like dumping money on Redford's like dumping money onto her like bills or something like that.
I think it's Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson.
Her husband's dumping it on her.
Oh, okay, yeah. See,
Yeah,
I
not
haven't
the-
seen the movie.
not the rich
Yeah,
guy.
I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really speak to it except that I remember it was really controversial when it came out, just because of the
I thought
subject
it
matter.
was a great movie
Yeah.
and all premises like.
Yeah, but there's a perfect example. You're not getting a movie like that today. That's a great pick. It really is.
Demi Moore, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of Demi Moore's. along with Woody Harrelson, but she picks such strong womanly roles like G.I. Jane, like Striptease, like in A Few Good Men.
She's confident.
She is very good. She picks the right roles. I think it's very empowering for women. Oh, what, you're going to go with Striptease, aren't you?
No.
You're going to take me back to Striptease, aren't you? I got a lot to say about that if you're going to challenge me on the Striptease role.
I saw it in the theater in 96. Like,
That's
I
a
saw it when
very
it came
hard
out.
decision to make for a couple. So none of
Okay,
us...
but have how many couples out there have even made that? What if this would happen?
Oh, I'm sure.
So take before the movie, instead of watching the movie and asking that question, how many couples have asked that question before seeing the movie?
First of all, we got to be
would you
hot
do
enough
this?
for Amanda to want to pay us a mill. I think we got that covered, Les.
Yeah, we got that.
But you know, it's to be in that situation. I don't know. You have to ask yourself. Do you think that you and your husband would act on that?
No.
Dana, do you
Jeremy,
think?
Jeremy likes to keep me close?
Dana, have you ever thought about something
Jeremy
like
says
that?
no.
Nope. Not at all.
And I personally have never been challenged with the old question, but you know, they needed it. That would have.
Would you have done it?
Would I have taken $1 million? I guess it depends on how much I loved my husband. I guess it depends on how much I believed in my husband and my marriage.
Yeah.
I guess
So
the answer would be no.
Yeah.
But would I be tempted? Would my husband be tempted? Yes.
Yeah, if you're down and out and you get an offer. Yeah.
All right.
Hey.
Perfect.
Especially if you pay a hitman to kill the guy. So,
Now that you got millions of
yeah,
dollars.
hey, rub the guy out.
All right. So that indecent proposal. Excellent choice.
Thank you, thank
All right, Leslie.
Mine, after I guess hearing about that horror, we're going to do Pretty Woman.
Oh, Pretty Woman. So
Oh, yeah.
directed by Gary Marshall, 1990. Julia Roberts, Richard Gere.
Do you know what her first role was?
I know she was in Mystic Pizza. I also know that she was in Steel Magnolias before, but I think Mystic Pizza might have been the
Mystic
first.
Pizza was not the first.
No? Okay.
Jess has the notes on that one.
Well, Satisfaction.
Satisfaction with
her and
Justine Bateman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Satisfaction. And then it went to Mystic Pizza.
Okay.
She had a role
Cates.
with her brother in a movie he was in. And
She
then-
played with Eric Roberts in a movie?
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't get along. Are you sure?
Yeah.
We need to look that up. As you two are chatting, I will be looking that up.
What's interesting about Pretty Woman was the original script for Pretty Woman was not considered a comedy of any stretch of the imagination. It was a very serious drama and very, very dark and did not have a happy ending. In fact, the character of Vivian actually doesn't make it by the end of the movie. And then when...
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was a really, really heavy story. But once Richard Gere and Julia Roberts were on board and Gary Marshall agreed to direct the film, they decided to retool it into a much more lighthearted movie. But you can also see there are some serious, undertones to the film. But look,
Disney came on board, and once Disney came on, and then that's
everything
when-
changed.
Yeah, Disney made it a fairy tale.
Yeah.
They created it into the fairy tale story,
Yeah.
which kind of saved the day because Julia Roberts was not the first choice. It was offered to Meg Ryan.
Molly Ringwald
Yeah.
turned it
And,
down.
Molly Ringwald, yeah.
Molly Ringwald said,
Yes.
I just don't like the storyline. Mistake. Big. Huge.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Nailed
Mistake.
it, Jess.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I was driving in 4 years ago when I was in LA. I was with my buddy Rich, and we were driving down Rodeo Drive, and it was my first time there. And I just kind of said to him, because he lives there, and I said, this is, I wonder if anyone ever has the Pretty Woman experience where, they go in there and they're treated like crap and all that stuff. And he pointed out one store to me, and I can't remember the name of it. He goes, you see that one store right there? It requires a $1,500 deposit for you to even go in there and look.
Jeez.
And I said, really? Now, how does that work? He goes, it's how you keep the tourists out. They want people in there that are serious. So you have to swipe a credit card for $1,500 just to go in and browse. And then if you decide to buy something, that $1,500 deposit is applied to your
Hey,
purchase.
genius. Makes
know?
people want to
Yeah.
go in.
Have you ever been on Rodeo Drive?
I have not.
the letters are in Swarovski crystals.
Yeah, no, it's
so beautiful.
It's immaculate. It was incredible. And then when you drive down the end of Rodeo Drive, there's the hotel that she was staying in. It's right there on the end. He was, excuse me, where he was
She earned her
staying.
keep. She earned her
stayed in a
keep.
different hotel.
She didn't kiss on the mouth, though. But she earned her keep. Yeah.
So that's another great example of when movies are movies, because that's an R-rated movie made for adults, and it was the second or third highest grossing movie of that year. The 3 highest grossing movies of 1990 were Home Alone, Ghost, and Pretty Woman. Number 4 on that list was Dances with Wolves. I mean, this is like, what a year, 1990, and
I graduated in 1990.
What year did The Untouchables come out?
1987.
Okay, because, gosh, Kevin Costner was so young.
So young in that movie.
And then he did Dancing with Wolves 3 years later.
He wrote, directed, and starred in Dances with Wolves.
Kevin Costner wrote Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, and he won the Academy Award for Best Director, Best Picture.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing that Bradley Cooper just wanted to get.
Oh, yeah, with Maestro.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Kevin Costner actually accomplished that, huh?
Yeah.
I did not know that Kevin Costner wrote Dances with Wolves.
There's a lot of controversy around Dances with Wolves being the best picture of 1990. A lot of people say there was another film that came out that year that was far superior, and honestly, to this day, is talked about a lot more.
Oh, your Canadian accent just came out.
Yeah, and that is Goodfellas.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
Martin
love
Scorsese
Goodfellas.
directed. That was, I tend to agree with that theory as well. The Goodfellas was the better of the two
good
movies.
choice. Good
But
pick,
back to
Les.
Pretty Woman,
Yeah.
Leslie. You guys know I do this dinner to movie, once a week,
And I love it.
And I've done Pretty Woman a few times, and
I would love to watch it there. I sit and I say every word with every word, and he's always like,
No, don't let her come. Annoying.
"Yeah, my
it's
husband."
it's kind of incredible. Julia Roberts is amazing in that film. She really is. But I cannot recall a movie that turned an actor or an actress into a megastar overnight. You've got to do your movies, like look at Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks had this run of fun, comedies in the 80s. Then he does Philadelphia, then he does Forrest Gump. He's massive.
I got one for you. How
Same
about Meg Ryan?
Well,
she did with Billy Crystal when Harry Met
When
Sally. That
Sally,
made
yeah.
her a success overnight.
Yeah, but not Julia Roberts level.
You don't think?
Julia Roberts,
No,
after Pretty Woman, became the highest paid actress, period.
Because Meg Ryan was offered that role. She turned it down. And she could have, but she
I
did
don't
Sleepless
know
in Seattle,
that
which
it would have. The chemistry would have been there.
Julia Roberts was offered Sleepless in Seattle, and she turned it down. So they kind of like did a little punching match on that one. But I don't know. I love both actresses, but
I do too, but I think that Meg Ryan would have been a different energy on set.
It would have been.
she does have her own style.
Julia
They both
Roberts
do.
and
They both have
being
their own
tall
style.
and skinny and beautiful. And
Well, the thing
very
is,
fidgety.
and I think it was a smart casting choice to have Julia Roberts in that role, because if you cast Meg Ryan in Pretty Woman, America already knows who Meg Ryan is. Most of America does not know who Julia Roberts is when, Pretty Woman comes out.
Can I just make a point here? Les is tall and Julia Roberts like, and I'm kind of shorter, blonde, Meg Ryan like, and it works for us.
it does.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So you're wrong.
But just a massively popular film, and a classic. It became an instant classic. Now, throughout the years, there's been some controversy about the film. They say that it glorifies prostitution and sex
What's wrong with
workers.
that?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
Oldest profession in America.
But there were some individuals that would come out and say
And I
that
could
that's
see
not what prostitution is really
glorifying.
like.
I get it. But in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
I mean, it's showing you dead hookers and
no,
I mean, like
listen,
it's saying.
Well,
like,
then again, I'm
look at
okay
her
with
friend.
taking $1 million for some sex, so I'm good.
but when you look at it at its core, it's a classic fish out of water tale. And those movies always play well because Julia Roberts, the audience lives vicariously through her as she experiences upper high society for the first time and kind of her way of sort of navigating through it. So it's the classic fish out of water. Fish out of water tales they're a dime a dozen in Hollywood, and they always seem to work. Like Beverly Hills Cop is another example of that. You know, you take a Detroit cop, put him in L.A., same thing.
And
so
it's follows the whole Disney thing. I mean, Cinderella goes home with gets Prince Charming. It's the same kind of
Did
thing.
either of you see the movie Dying Young with
Yes.
Julia Roberts and
yes.
who was that guy? Campbell Scott. He was the one that played in Dying Young. It's the same thing. Julia Roberts took on that role to where he was very wealthy and she was the same kind of wealth as she was in Pretty Woman. And that movie is amazing. Dana, have you ever seen Dying Young?
I have.
I would love for you to revisit Dying Young and tell me what you think of that.
After you watch The Jerk.
I will. Oh, that's not a problem. I'm going
And
to watch
you have
The
to
Jerk.
watch Untouchables.
No problem. And here's a movie I've never watched. Everyone brace yourselves. Footloose.
What?
Oh,
Yep, exactly.
Wait a minute. Are you kidding?
No.
this is a joke, right?
No. Yes. No.
Jess.
It's not a joke. I know. But here's the deal. If I watch it at this point, then I can't say I've never watched Footloose. So what do I do now?
No, but you have to
My
watch
mind
it.
is blown.
There's-
We're having a girls' night.
Listen.
Yes. Okay.
Footloose, all right? Without spoilers, okay? All right, Kevin Bacon plays a hip Chicago kid who moves to a Midwestern farm town, all right, where they've banned dancing, all right? All right? John Lithgow plays like the local preacher.
Who wrote it?
I don't know who wrote it, but listen, there's a scene in the movie where it's towards the third act when nothing's going right for Kevin Bacon and all hope is lost. And he goes to a plant, a factory, a mill that makes like horse feed, okay? And there's no one there. And he's so down on himself that he dances his problems away. And it's the greatest
I do that all
scene
the time.
ever. But
Herbert Ross.
Herbert Ross. Yeah, Herbert Ross.
You're just describing my life.
I'm telling you, it's, and there's also a scene where they play chicken with big giant tractors set to the Bonnie Taylor
Now
song.
it's complete. I just did that last week.
I Need a Hero.
I need a hero.
Yes, I'm telling you, you have to watch this movie.
We're having
Okay.
and
night.
Miles Teller is the star of the remake.
I don't want to
of
hear about the
Footloose.
remake. Here you go. You blew it. I don't want to hear about the remake. I just do not.
So, but Pretty Woman, excellent choice, Leslie. All right,
But I do want to hear about Miles Teller. You got me.
back to you, Jess.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you decide, DanaBuckler, between Freedom or St. Elmo's Fire.
Well, I'll take Braveheart.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good choice.
Braveheart, written, directed, starring Mel Gibson. Did the same thing that Kevin Costner did. He won all the Oscars in '95 for that film.
He deserved it.
Braveheart, the story of William Wallace and the fight for Scottish independence. I don't know much more that needs to be said about the film other than it's a sprawling epic, and I saw it in the theater. I was 17 years old, and that movie fools you into a sense of comfort that you're thinking like, well, this is, it's all right. And then the violence kicks in for the first time and you're like, oh my.
Yeah, what did I get myself into?
I was like, the first time you see a limb get chopped off or someone's throat gets slit, you're like, oh, this is going for it.
How do you feel? How do you think he prepared for this movie? What do you think he did for preparation to play William Wallace?
Well, he worked on his Scottish accent.
Isn't he from New York?
He's Australian.
Really?
Mel Gibson's Australian.
Are you sure?
Well, he's originally
So he was born in New York.
He was born in New York,
and
but
grew up in
grew up in Australia.
So
yeah.
he's not Australian.
But he has a thick Australian accent.
Maybe so. But was he actually from Australia?
Not originally.
I
no.
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah.
Not to challenge you.
That's it. I quit the podcast.
Huh?
No, I'm kidding.
Put the phones back on. So he was born in New York.
Yes.
And then he grew up in Australia.
Yes, and became and broke into acting in Australia.
And if I'm not wrong, I believe he spent some time in Texas.
Possibly.
Okay, first off, how you can't remember what you went in the other room for, but you know every director every year where they're born. It's blowing my mind.
Thank you. I can't tell you 2 + 2, but damn it, I can tell you what William Wallace had for lunch yesterday.
That's right.
So I just thought that it was one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible film, has an incredible musical score, and it is...
Tell us what a musical score means for people who don't know.
Well, when you look at music in movies, there's 2 types, all right? There is the musical score, and then there is the soundtrack, all right? I'll give you a perfect example of how you can tell the 2 apart, all right? We'll use Top Gun as an example. When you hear Danger Zone playing in Top Gun, that is part of the soundtrack. And then when you hear the Top Gun theme playing, that is part of the score. So, when music is made intentionally for a movie, that is a musical score. All right. And then when they play music in a movie, that is the soundtrack.
Okay, so Braveheart didn't really have a great soundtrack.
Didn't have a
it had
soundtrack
a wonderful
at all.
musical score.
Yeah, it had a musical score.
Did you know that Kenny Loggins wrote all of his music for the movie was Top Gun? He wrote the music especially for Top Gun.
Sure.
And when he did the music for Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, he wrote it for Over the Top.
And also for Footloose.
And for Footloose. Yes. So he won Oscars,
that
did he
you
not?
will watch this week.
Or he did for, I believe it won for Top Gun.
I actually don't know. I didn't look that up. I don't know if Danger
to.
Zone won best song. I don't know.
Well, so, and then at the end of Braveheart, one of my favorite endings to a movie is where they just finished the last battle and they're trying to win the freedom for Scotland. And he just throws the sword and it sticks into the ground and it waves back and forth. And then the movie is over.
Yep.
And that's one of the most intense endings to me for a movie that I've ever seen. It just touched me. I love Mel Gibson. Poor guy. Patriot. Passions of the Christ.
You say poor guy.
Poor guy. He got a bad rap. So the guy beats his wife and he's an alcoholic. We can't give him a little something. Can't we give him something?
Yeah, we gave him Braveheart and a whole bunch of medals.
he's a great director.
And he's back with grade B movies that I just love.
Everything has to break you at some point. Like look at all the comedians that kill themselves or they're hooked on something. All that pressure all the time. I mean, he just snapped.
Yeah.
You take that much fame and fortune to your head, and a lot of people just constantly coming at you. So I wouldn't want to be in that predicament. Charlie Sheen. Okay, now St. Elmo's Fire. That's what I was hoping you'd pick.
Let's just talk about real quick. Let's just touch real quick on St. Elmo's Fire.
1985, directed by Joel Schumacher.
Loved it.
The quintessential Brat Pack movie.
Do you remember where you were the first time you saw it?
Yeah.
Do you remember what?
In my mom's womb.
Like you feel like you're there.
Yeah, no. I saw that movie in 1996. The first time I saw it, I was 18 years old. It just a movie that had passed me by. I was familiar, very, very familiar with the soundtrack.
John Parr.
Yeah, great soundtrack.
Love St. Elmo's Fire.
But I had never actually watched the movie. And then when I watched it as an 18-year-old, I didn't get it. And then, 10, 12 years later, when I was an adult, I watched it. I was like totally understood what everyone was going through. But no, it's a great film. It's amazing to watch that movie now and sort of look at the careers that each one of those actors had and kind of like, the ups and downs. Right. Like, we don't really know what Ali Sheedy's doing.
She played in Home Alone. She had a cameo in Home Alone, too.
We don't know what Emilio's doing these days. We're not really sure what Judd's doing.
I think Emilio Estevez is focusing on his family.
Do you think it's safe to say that Demi Moore had the most successful career out of
everyone? Rob Lowe's second.
Rob Lowe's had Rob Lowe.
And I believe it's Demi Moore. And I'm a big fan of Demi Moore's. I think I've already said that.
Yeah. And it's a proposal.
Yes, but her and A Few Good Men. Her and G.I. Jane, by the way.
She's awesome in
G.I. Jane. I really like that she's still sticking by Bruce Willis's side.
I love it.
Yes.
And it just breaks my heart.
And Dana, you just did a show on moonlighting.
Yeah, with Glenn Gordon Caron, who's still friends with him to this day.
Yep, gave Bruce Willis his first shot at acting. And he filled in well, if you would listen to the Dana Buckler show on the Glencairn interview, it'll tell you all about Demi and Bruce.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, listen, guys, this was a lot of fun. When Movies Were Movies, Volume 3. Just to remind everybody, my guests today are Les and Jess from the Joint Laughter podcast. And you guys are, let's see, this episode will come out just a few days before the, first anniversary of your podcast. And let me just start by saying congratulations on 1 year.
Thank you.
It's kind of sad, but most podcasts on average don't make it past 10 episodes. That's just a statistical fact. A lot of people think podcasting
We're just getting started.
is easy. It's not. It's actually a lot of work. You guys know firsthand. There's a ton of prep that goes into each and every episode that you do. There's a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes in post-production, marketing, social media, the whole nine. It's not an easy gig. So to make it 1 year is a true testament to the job and the journey that you have both been on. So let me just again say congratulations.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you for having me on. I've actually been a guest on your show. I look forward to being a guest again. And I look forward to having you guys back on the Dana Buckler show. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Can we end it humming I'll Be a Hero? Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
And on that note,
I'll be a hero.
And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and segue that music in real quick here. So here it comes. So for everybody listening, if you want to follow me on social media, follow the show, you can do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dana Buckler Show. I'm also on there at Dana Buckler. I'm on Instagram at The Dana Buckler and on Instagram at The Dana Buckler Show. You can email me, thedanabucklershow@gmail.com. So
I'm confused. Can you say that again?
yes, absolutely. I'm just going to copy and paste it and send it again. So, once again, Jess, Les, thank you guys for being on the show.
And check us out at Joint Laughter, jointlaughter.com, jointlaughter@gmail.com. Find us on our Instagram. Face, the Book of Face, the TikTok.
All right.
The Talk Tick.
And for everybody else listening, my name is Dana Buckler, and until next time.